All right, guys. So we are here today. We kind of changing pace a little bit, but we figured storm season is upon us, and it's coming a little earlier than we expected this year due to weather models. But we just wanted to kind of do a general PSA video to some homeowners of the stuff that we run into on a day-to-day basis out in the field. In the roofing and restoration world, and some common pitfalls that you can avoid, or just some general education that might help you make a better or wiser choice when choosing a contractor for your roofing project. So there's some general things that we kind of see from fly-by-night companies, larger companies, some things that are done under the table that aren't necessarily legal or done with good ethics or moral ground. But we're just going to take this opportunity to kind of go over, what Christian thinks is the top 3 things that he sees out in the field, that I've seen out in the field over the years of frowned upon behaviors or things that homeowners can avoid for their roofing project or their restoration project from the very unpredictable and damaging weather that we get here in Colorado. So, Christian, and we'll kind of riddle them off and then go more in depth on them, but what are the top 3 things that you're kind of seeing that maybe homeowners aren't aware of, or put them in a position to not necessarily get the best service or product on their roof?
Well, it's hard to boil it down to 3 things, but I mean, let's be honest. When the storms happen, if you've lived in Colorado and you've owned a home in Colorado, or just even been at home when these types of things happen, instantaneously flyers are flooding your streets, and your doorbell never stops ringing. It's like vultures swarm in, right? And there's a reason behind that, and one of those things is, I think, probably one of the most prominent things to avoid. Everybody thinks that they're a roofer the second that hail hits. And why is that, right? Well, it, to an unexperienced eye, looks like money just fell out of the sky. The easiest way to put it, right? It's like you have homeowners insurance. You're required to have homeowners insurance. You have written policy that states what happens when hail and wind damages your property, and they're willing to pay for it if you've paid your deductible, so on and so forth. So there's this huge pot of money to pay for home renovations, and sometimes it's very necessary home renovations. You might be sitting on a limit of a home that all of a sudden gets hit by a storm, and it just is a really convenient timing that now you don't have to pay for it. Right. So there's a lot of reasons why people are there, and the reason that it's like it swarms. Let's just put it in this perspective. If you've heard of this organization prior to the day they knock on your door, they might be worth their weight.
Right.
If you've never heard of them before, chances are they're fly-by-night. And when we say fly-by-night, what do I mean? Are there storm chasers coming from out of town? Not just out of town. I mean, we have a 50-mile crow's flight from both of our locations, so we cover a lot of territory. So we're not necessarily in your town right this second shooting this video, but we're regularly servicing in your area.
Right.
What I mean is like out of state or very far away from where that you are. So they might be an organization, but they're coming to reap the benefits of what happened in our neck of the woods. Or it's that they're just, a DIY guy who thinks I can probably do some roofing, or I could find a way to get this done. And ultimately they're just like, I'm going to start a new business instantaneously, and I'm going to pay the Secretary of State $50 to create an LLC. And now I'm a roofer, right?
Yeah.
Now there's more licensing and things that go along with it, but Colorado is not a state where you have to, like New York and California and a couple other states, it's very difficult. Florida is the worst of all of them, but it's very difficult to get a license in those states because every municipality in the entire state has the same governing requirements to be able to work there. Colorado's not that way. Some municipalities have very lackluster requirements, which means you could be pretty lackluster and do your business there. Right. So, people just all of a sudden become, I've seen it from family members of mine or friends that I knew from high school and stuff. All of a sudden they're a 1099 contracted roofing salesperson, and they've never stepped foot on a roof before in their life. So this stuff does happen, and there's a reason it's there. But the reason you want to avoid this, and I mentioned, I think that one of the biggest keys is in avoiding this is like if you've heard of this organization prior to this day, that's probably a good way, a reason to at least listen to that person over the ones that are flooding your door with, "I've got the best of the best of the best for you," right?
Right.
Um, but if you're working with a fly-by-night roofer or somebody who cannot service a warranty, it's a really bad position to be in if and when, which some of them it will be a win more than an if, they do something wrong. Like,
It's funny, the warranty thing. I was reading a statistic 2 days ago, actually, that restoration companies, interior or exterior, so both, the 79% fail in their first year, 86% fail by their third year, and 73% fail by their 10th year.
in terms of like what do you mean?
That the business is still up and running,
Oh,
right?
sure. Yeah.
So after their first year, if you have some of these fly-by-night companies, right? And let's say they do exactly what you just said, hailstorm comes through, they pull their business license, they start a business, and they're like, oh, I'm going to, run this business now and make a ton of money. There's a 8.5% chance that they won't even be in business
In 3 years.
in 3 years. Well, in 1 year.
In 1 year, and worse than that, and 2
Yeah.
3. Yeah, it says a lot. Your tenure in this industry says a lot about your ability to strategize and just
Right.
your overall business acumen.
Right.
Because if you're like, we work probably, it used to be 100% of the work that we did was insurance restoration services,
Right.
right? That was 100% because nobody knew who we were. So
Right.
the only way we could go and find this work is when there was storms and we had to have, more fruit to pick up or whatever you want to call it, right? More harvest opportunities. But as we've gone along and as we've learned the ins and outs of the industry and as we've gained and grown and brought in experts and that type of stuff, now it's transitioned to more like a 60-40 split, where about 60% of our business is insurance related. But when you're a really insurance dominant business, the people that are in this attrition rate that you're talking about, the reason that they fizzle out is not because they can't make a lot of money. They can make a lot of money quickly because there's a lot of people who have a need and they have a solution, but they don't know how to plan and strategize for the denominator or the piece that's out there that they're not familiar with, which is the big bad insurance company.
Right.
Right. I've had jobs. We did a job in Cheyenne, Wyoming, that was just shy of $1 million project that we
Right.
had to fully fund, complete the job, and had to wait another 185 days before we were paid for the job.
Right.
How are you going to do $1 million project without being funded for the project if you don't have the ability to strategize and understand your cash flow and know when and where you need to place your people
Right.
and your things and have good process and procedures to get there, right? So what happens is they bite off more than they can chew. They spend the money that they're given and they don't finish the work. And
Right.
ultimately they give the rest of us a very bad name.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So you're going to fly-by-nighters, you're going to get what people call tail light warranty.
Yep.
Right. I'm going to give you a lifetime warranty, the lifetime of you being able to see my taillights, because you'll
Yeah.
never hear from me again. Right. That's the stuff that you need to watch out for. Right. And you want me to go deeper into that one?
No, I just think it's important because I'm not going to name any names of companies out here, but there's a couple companies that have in the last 5 to 10 years kind of trickled their way into Colorado that are larger, 15, 16 state operating companies. And their model is built on, it's almost pyramid schema, like, right, where the director of sales hires sales managers, the sales managers go recruit young college kids, those young college kids go out and try to sell roofs, and they get paid, a certain amount for every roof they get on or every contingency that gets filled out, whatever that may be. What my question is, whenever I have a homeowner that's going with a company like that, is what happens if they build your roof and 7 months from now it leaks, right? If you look at a lot of these companies' websites, they don't even have the ability to furnish repairs, right? It's just like,
repairs.
here's the work we did. Our hands are washed of it. Now we're all done, right? I think one of my favorite things about this company, it happened to us today. I had one of my customers call in and ask a question about just the way some of her shingles looked, right? And within 20 minutes, our production manager said, I'm sending out our guys on Saturday. They're going to take a look at everything and make sure everything is ship shape. Right. And if that's not service, right, and care for projects that we did 9 months ago, I don't know what is, right?
Yeah, you're not going to get that with those large scale businesses. And it's not to dog on the large scale businesses, because ultimately, I mean, as a business owner, who wouldn't want to have a 16 state reach
Right.
or a 25 state reach or a 50 state reach,
Right.
international or whatever? I mean, that's shooting for the stars.
Right.
But you fall into the problem of the head is too separated from the body.
Correct.
And a lot of the competitors that are those large, widespread organizations, what you're not getting that you're getting with a local group like ours is they're probably not actually employees. They're probably 1099. So when you say a pyramid scheme, they're taking cuts. So their job is to find the opportunity and then pass it off. Find the opportunity, pass it off, and you get paid based off your contract with the organization. Which I'm not going to dog on that either, because that serves its own purpose. Because if you need to, if you need to fill a spot, chances are you sub those miscellaneous pieces out until you can actually backfill that in an organization as part of growth and stuff like that. But at the same time, you're not going to get the same level of care because you no longer have access to that business that was not the business you thought you signed up for. That was a contracted company that was working for a business. So now you're just an extraneous detail that they've got to clean up, but they got to clean it up at whatever they think that priority is to them. Right. 16 state business, it got a lot of cash flow. Yeah. They don't really care about your $300 fix on a skylight. Right. You're going to sit there and they're going to say, you're on our production queue, but we can't be there for 9 months. Right. Well, in 9 months, how much more problem is it going to cause? And then when they get there, are they even going to honor a warranty? Because they probably have a lot of writing in there that states what things are, here's my disclosure, and these are the things that are not covered. And because of the way I vaguely wrote this, actually, I'm not going to actually do this for you. You got to pay double that because our service and repair department has to feed the overhead, so on and so forth. Like it's just kind of the way that it is in the industry, unfortunately, which is why we're stating this as a public service announcement to people. Is like, you don't have to go directly local. It doesn't need to be your next door neighbor, but you need to focus on what's the tenure of the organization, for one. And if you're willing to take a gamble on the tenure, because obviously we were 1 year old when we were 1 year old, people said yes to us all at this point. But if you think the integrity's there and the wits about them are there, then we're just going to need to start asking questions about those types of things. How fast can I get a hold of you? What's your service and repair like? Maybe dial their company office and see how fast you can get connected to those certain people, that kind of stuff. It's just simply investigation. But if you're going to have somebody on your biggest and most prized asset, 99% of people who own a home, their home is their most valuable asset. It's their biggest investment. Our job is to serve that big investment and protect you. So maybe do a little research. Right.
Yeah, it's funny. I used the analogy a few weeks ago with a customer of a car and a dealership, right? I was like, well, if you go, purchase your car from a dealership in Nashville, right? And the dealership warranty is specific to that dealership, not the manufacturer, we'll say. Let's say something goes wrong with your car 4 months after you buy it here in Colorado, but the only way you can get that warranty service is if you go out to Nashville. How much of a pain in the ass would that be, right? How much of a headache would that be? So you can pay for the drive back out there, and then get the warranted item fixed, which won't cost you anything if it's warranted. But then you got to drive all the way back out there, all the way back, and hope it doesn't happen again, right? So like, it reminds me of 2 years ago in Wellington. I was sitting in the parking lot of Baumgart's, and I saw this minivan pull up with Montana license plates, and I saw 7 roofing salesmen hop out of the van. Yep. And it was like, I remember one of the guys, he was like, "Hey, you here to work the storm?" And I was like, "Yeah." I was like, "Are you?" And he was like, "Yeah." And I was like, "You're a long way from home, bud." Right? But I mean, you tell a customer, like, let's say, John Smith, roofing guy 1, goes and knocks on your door and is convincing, right? Or persuasive enough or believable enough that he can take care of your project. My question to that homeowner is like, what happens when you call him 2 months from now and he's like, "Oh, yeah, I mean, I live in Helena." So, I mean, you could call a different roofing company.
I have contracts with 4 different roofing companies.
Right.
So here's a direct dial to their main line.
Right.
Hope you get
So it's one of the things that I heavily focus on with homeowners is not only our ability to, upstand our warranty, but also the speed at which we do so, right? If there's any problem with any job that we've ever built, I've never seen it take longer than a day or two to get addressed and then go out there and find a solution, right? Which is pretty, I don't think that people fully understand how valuable that is.
Well, the common person who doesn't work inside the walls or inside of a business like this doesn't know how many moving parts that takes.
Right.
Like there's a lot of coordination just behind the dispatch.
Well, I mean, my phone call today was my phone call to one person. He then called another person. That person then called another person, scheduled something, called him back. He then called me back. Then I called the homeowner back.
Yep.
Right. So that 20-minute ordeal was 6-8 phone calls, and then coordinated and handled. Right. So that's all internal, which makes it 10 times easier.
Yeah.
So if we go on, and I think that this is also a trend with some fly-by-night people, but if we kind of feed into the next one of our favorite of just good old-fashioned insurance fraud.
Good
old-fashioned insurance fraud.
Yeah.
And, people's deductibles being waived or credited or paid or written off as a marketing expense or whatever that may be, and the unknowing misdemeanor they're committing. And I would venture to say that every roofing company owner knows the felony that they are committing. And they're unwilling, oftentimes.
You wouldn't have to venture. They know.
Yeah. And they're very readily available to offer that service, knowing that they're committing a felony and not educating their homeowners on the fact that they're committing a misdemeanor and making themselves potentially uninsurable in the future. Right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a black mark on your insurance history for sure.
Big one.
So waiving deductibles, Senate Bill 38, Colorado Senate Bill 38. Every state has different statute and different writing, but the Senate Bill 38 for the Colorado viewers is what you need to reference with what we're talking about.
Right.
Says very clearly how it's handled. Right. There is to be no waiving or crediting or covering or them paying or gift carding or anything of the sort, right? You as a homeowner have signed a contract when you set up your insurance. You say, I'm okay with this, here's my what's the sheet called that they're signing? It's basically
declaration page.
Your declaration page. I'm okay with this coverage. I'm okay with this coverage, this coverage limit, so on and so forth. And I'm okay with my personal requirement on each of these. If I call in for a wind and hail claim, here's my deductible. You signed that contract. It's a legally binding contract. Their underwriters know it. You know it. You signed it, right? So, and in Colorado Senate Bill 38, it clearly says that nobody else can cover that besides you, right? Auto hail, stuff like that. I don't know how they get around that. I'm not in that industry. I don't understand exactly how that all works and how they get away with it. And they broadcast it on signs, but it's impossible for a roofing company to waive your deductible without doing something illegal.
Right.
And the reason that it is your insurance company is going to write out, here's your scope of loss. Here's how much we think that it's going to cost for each one of these using Xactimate or Symbility or whatever estimating software that they use. And they're going to say, we'll pay this much. You have to pay this much, right? And that's what tall and short of it. The only way to recover all the sums that they're willing to pay towards this job is if you have proof, i.e. an invoice that you charged that much, right? Anytime anybody ever says, I'll waive your deductible, if they waive your deductible, what they're doing is they're billing your insurance company one price and then they're billing you something different. Tell me what you think that is.
I mean, it's lying.
This one's fake.
Yeah.
This one's real.
Yeah.
And it's fraudulent. It's felony. It's felony insurance fraud. Any way that you try to tie a bow on it, they're like, we'll call it a marketing sign, right? They're like, I'll pay you $1,000 because your deductible is $1,000 to put a sign in your yard. Like, what kind of asinine BS is that?
Right.
I mean, let's be real. Like, use your brain, right? So we can cover things like broken expenses. If
Mhm.
I drop a shingle off your roof and it breaks a window in your house, I can pay you back for the window,
Right.
right? That's a damage expense. I cannot pay you to put a sign in your yard that just so happens to be exactly how much your deductible is. Because if this is ever audited, it's going to look very fishy and it's going to be investigated. And it's going to be investigated through the company. You will then therefore be investigated as well. You're aiding in the felony, which makes it a misdemeanor offense for you as a homeowner.
Yep.
I don't. Now let's talk about like the action or like the character piece that's involved with this as well. It's not just that it's a felony. It's that if this person is willing to, commit felonious activity on your property, what other things are they willing to do to make a buck while they're there?
Yeah. What other corners are they willing to cut?
Think about it.
Yeah.
I mean, just use your brain, right? As you know, let's be responsible homeowners out there. It's like if they're willing to cut this corner to make me pay $2,000 less for this $30,000 increase to my home's appraisal value, right? So I'm getting it for free. I'm getting all this stuff. It sounds all gravy. What are they going to do? So they're like, okay, well, how are we going to make up that $2,000? They're going to give you crap product, or they're going to say that they're doing it one way and do it another way. There's a lots of ways to skin the cat, and no two shingles are the same,
Right.
right? I can tell you that much for certain. They'll tell you that this shingle is the most beautiful, amazing thing on the planet. It happens to be the lowest rated shingle possible. And they're doing it on purpose. They're helping you save money. And you're going to get hit by another hailstorm in the next 2 or 3 years. And they're going to come back and they're going to do the same thing over again. You're like a damn slot machine to them.
Well, I think that, and I think a lot of people don't realize a lot of the corners that are cut with contractors in what they're invoicing insurance for work they're not actually doing, right? So like oftentimes you'll see when you get to a tear off, you'll see 5-6 layers of underlayment. And you're like, wait a second, why are there 5-6 layers of underlayment, right? It's just like, oh, well, they didn't tear off the underlayment. They just put new stuff on, right? Or they didn't tear off the shingles. They just put shingles on top of the shingles. I'm sure they billed for the tear off, but they didn't do it.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, you're saving costs. That's where you're getting your $2,000 back, because you leave a layer up there.
Right.
You just minimized 8-man teams workday by 4 hours, multiply 4 times 8. I mean, that's 32 man hours.
Yep.
There's a lot of money that you saved in labor costs, not to mention the dump fees that are associated with it. There's ways to make that money back. And that's what they're going to do. They're going to find ways to maximize their profit and charge you less by committing an insurance fraud.
I mean, in all kinds of ways, not replacing ventilation that's paid for, not replacing, or, I mean, I did have a customer that, and this was not insurance work, but they were told that they were getting a class 4 shingle. They got a class 3 shingle, right? And, promised up and down and paid for a class 4 shingle and got a class 3 shingle.
They paid the upgrade.
Right. They paid for the upgrade. And then the people, I mean, you think about it, that's like you're buying a car, that's like buying an F-150, Lariat, which is or Platinum, which is the highest, right? And then they deliver you an XL.
But they slapped a platinum sticker on.
But they slapped a platinum sticker on it,
right?
and then charged you $90K when your truck was really worth $50K, right?
Yeah.
So I think that there's, in our language, when we communicate with homeowners, like when I'm at the table with them discussing paperwork, I'm very thorough, as you are as well, of like, when I say tear off, I'm going to say tear off to the deck, which means I'm tearing off to the wood. So at one point, if you come outside, you should see wood, right? And then we're going to put new underlayment on, right? We're going to do ice and water to code specific, right? We're going to do everything that we furnished and what we said we're going to do. We're not going to put subpar material up there and then bill you for premium material, right? Which I think, happens much more, I think, than people think.
So you could go further down the rabbit hole with this conversation, very far down the rabbit hole.
Very far.
But it's like, so if somebody's waives the deductible, they try to make it up by not doing certain things they're supposed to be doing. Your municipality and the permit that's required to do this work is going to require certain things and to be able to view certain things, right? So how do you get away with not tearing off underlayment, right? Well, maybe you do fraud again. You submit pictures of a job that wasn't your own job,
right?
Which homeowners get this taken advantage of in this scenario all the time too. They'll have Salespeople go up and they'll be like, "Oh, you got hail," and they'll show them a picture of somebody else's roofs just because, stuff like that. It's like you gotta trust your gut in a lot of these scenarios. And one of the things that's fairly key, it's like nobody really wants to pay the deductible, but do you really want 2 or 3 years from now your house to start leaking, right, and your insurance not to cover it?
Right.
Let's tackle it. Let's invest back into your property the way that it's supposed to. You pay your part, insurance pays our part. We do quality work for you.
Right.
It's really simple.
I think that, to summarize that, I think that, and, all of the stand-up roofing companies nationwide, I mean, I'm part of a lot of groups, with contractors and other roofers, et cetera. The biggest thorn in our side, right? Or, Lego we step on is just like a lot of the battle that you see is I saw a post yesterday from a roofer that was like, I worked on this job trying to get this job for 6 weeks. And then some asshole came in and said, I'll just pay your $7,400 deductible.
Mm-hmm.
And the homeowner was like, will you do that? And he said, no, I won't do that because it's against the law. Mm-hmm. And he was like, and then I just lost the contract. Mm-hmm. And it's like, he's like, it's demoralizing, mm-hmm. right? But really I think, at least in Colorado, I don't think people understand the legal consequences, which a contractor can go to jail for, mm-hmm. right? The owner of a business can go to jail for, right?
It's real. It's just take your guns away type of stuff.
Right.
Like you lose your rights.
Yeah, you lose. Yeah, and a homeowner may not necessarily go to jail, but they would definitely get a hefty fine, and then, every time that they have to apply for insurance, not just homeowners insurance, any insurance, mm-hmm. from that point on, they've got a tick on their record, mm-hmm. Or some kind of mark on their record that's like, you've taken advantage of insurance companies before. Mm-hmm. We don't necessarily want to insure you, or we're going to insure you with astronomical rates.
Yeah, we'll give you the same thing you got before for 3 times the cost.
Right. So, to put it simply, don't let somebody cover your deductible. Mm-hmm. It's against the law. So
very simple.
Yeah, and that kind of feeds into our last bullet that you brought up earlier, which is the way that we want to build the company and do work for our customers is kind of around that point of a lot of contractors want to put a lower grade shingle up on the roof so they get repeat business, right? Whereas you stated, right, like, I want to put the highest grade quality material up there so that it is less prone to damage. And then what I want you to do is refer me your neighbors, mm-hmm. right? Because I want to build that level of trust, understanding that we operate with ethics, mm-hmm. right? And that we operate under a certain umbrella of, we're not going to promise you one thing, do the other, break the law, or give you subpar work, mm-hmm. or material. So you want to go into that a little bit more?
Sure. Actually, it's kind of funny that we brought this topic up based off of the lunch that I went to earlier today with my supplier and one of our manufacturer reps that wanted me to push their product more than we're pushing other products. Anyways, I stated very clearly, it's like, look, my guys can sell anything to anybody. They're salespeople.
Right.
Right. If I tell them I want them to sell this product, they'll sell this product based off the pros of this product, mm-hmm. and avoid the cons of that product. But is that the way that we want our team members to be?
No.
We went further into this conversation. It's like, I want to put the best quality, highest rated product on any one of my houses that I possibly can. And there's a lot of people who have the opposite. They're like, thought process, roofing company owners, just like, why would you want to put the best thing up there? Because you're never going to do that roof again. It's like, yeah, I may never do that roof again, but let's think about it. Future state, your house has to be restored. We put the best product on there that we possibly can. It gets hit 4 years later. Everyone on the street went with a lower grade product. You went with the right product, right? Every one of them is going to be asking, who did your work? So I do have an ulterior motive behind it, but mm-hmm. it's based off of, I want to protect you, and then I want you to be my source. My source.
Yeah.
Right.
Word of mouth.
So word of mouth is more important than, one-time transactional sales. I want to develop relationships with my accounts. I want to make sure they know that we're service oriented. We're not just service oriented for the dollar. We're service oriented because we know we have we have a duty to protect your property. Like, we're supposed to be there to help you with something, right? And if we're going to take advantage of that situation, we shouldn't be doing this. And that's
Right.
the problem with the industry, is there's a lot of people, like I said, the people just fall out of the sky, just like the hail did, that all of a sudden a roofer is like, they're taking advantage of the situation. And I get it. Everybody in the world wants to make a buck, but let's not make a buck at the expense of our clients.
Let's just make a buck the right way.
We're going to make a buck with our clients, not
Right.
at the expense
Right.
of our clients.
Exactly.
We're doing it for profit. This isn't a nonprofit organization. And we have all kinds of, things that we want to do bleeding heart work with. We want to give back everywhere we can, but we still have to pay our bills.
Right.
So we're going to do it, but we're going to do it ethically. We're going to do it sound. We're going to come back and fix it if we do it wrong. You're not going to get that with fly by night.
No.
You're really not going to. And you're not going to do that if you don't do, research on the words that are being said to you by these people that you don't know yet. Check into the quality of the material. Check into the quality of the organization.
Right.
Right. It's really simple, because you're going to see thousands of them, but you're not going to see those thousands of them as soon as the storm runs out.
Yeah, it was like I remember the first storm I ever worked in Oklahoma, where there's, that Oklahoma City area all the way to Dallas gets just obliterated every year with tornadoes and hail that's the size of softballs, right? And I remember this was my first time in the industry, and I don't really know what to expect. And I'm with the owner of the company at the time. We pull up to Home Depot, and there's like 140 different roofing company trucks. And I was like, where did all these people come from? Right. And out there, the homeowners, and I think homeowners in Colorado are getting there. They're getting more educated towards the lower quality or fly by night type people. But I remember vividly, one of the first interactions I had with a customer, she said at the door, let me see your license.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay. So I went and got the business license, and I was like, here's our license. And she said, no. Let me see your driver's license.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, what? And she's like, let me see your driver's license. And I showed her my driver's license, and she said, get off my porch. You're not from here.
Yeah.
And I was like, I appreciated it. But at the same time, I was like, damn, right? She got me, right? But, I wish there was, and hopefully videos like this will be more helpful to homeowners out here, where they don't get taken advantage of by companies that are willing to cut corners, do things illegally, or, just come into an area for 21 to 30 days, try to maximize money, and then get out and go to a different storm in a different state, and then get out of that state, go to a different storm in a different state, right? I don't think people really who are outside the industry even know that happens.
Yeah.
Right. But it's everywhere. I mean, guys that live in, fifth wheels and motorhomes for 6 months out of the year, driving across the country, just trying to sell roofs. Right. And I look at like the give backs, the things that we do for the local community, and keeping the money local, right, is, to me, it's tremendously important. And I think that, especially northern Colorado communities are more inclined to do the same. But, a really talented salesperson that's a little bit slimy and very persuasive is difficult. It's difficult to combat at the home, especially if you are ignorant to the process, right? And don't really understand. I mean, I didn't even think about roofing or my roof until I got in this industry.
Right.
And I would assume that that's probably most homeowners.
Yeah. It reminds me of something my mom told me when I was a kid. She told me that the devil is not red with horns and a pointy stick. She said that the devil's clean cut with blue eyes and talks really well.
Yeah.
Right. It's like, I got blue eyes. But it's like it really can be the case. It's the bane of the bane of our existence in the roofing industry. It's like people have created such a bad reputation for roofers. There are good roofers out there. They're just not all of them are
Right.
good roofers. There are great companies with great morals and ethics, and they serve the community. They fund it back. I mean, honestly, when a hailstorm happens, most people don't understand really the stimulus it causes for that local economy.
It's tremendous.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
If you buy a local product from the local supplier, you're feeding local organizations, they're filling up their gas, they're buying food, they're doing all these things. They're just stimulating the economy
Right.
right there in that one spot. And it could be a huge power play for that area. I think there was one storm in the one that hit Lakewood in 2017. Something like $2 or $3 billion was stimulated through insurance claims in
Right.
that localized area. It's like, what can $2 or $3 billion do for the Colorado community?
Right.
Right. So it's like, yeah, we are out here trying to get work. So are you when you go and you clock in, or when you do your business or sell your product.
Right.
Right. But there are some of us that do it honest, and there's some of us that don't. And that's what this video is for.
Yeah. So a couple key points. I mean, you could name off that first one if you want of not going with a fly by night and trusting local,
Yep.
and don't commit insurance fraud and let somebody cover your deductible. It's against the law. And then, the final point of go with a company that in my opinion, it's pretty simple. Go with a company that genuinely wants to keep you safe, increase the value of your home because a new roof does, right? And doesn't bank on your repeat business 2, 3, 4 years from now, right? And, understand that our intention is to take care of you as the homeowner, as well as all the people around you that you refer us to, and we will do so to the best of our ability.
Yeah. There's one last piece I didn't put in there. If you're ever in a conversation with a roofer and somebody's being pitted as an enemy, whether that's you, whether that's them, or whether that's the insurance company, they're the wrong person.
Yep.
There should never, ever be a point where somebody's trash talking the insurance to get your business, or they're trash talking a competitor to get your business, right? We're not trash talking any individual competitors. We're just saying this is a standard inside of the industry, and this is what we want you to avoid. But if you're ever in that position, it's a good indicator of who that person is.
Right.
Right. The insurance company is not our enemy. They are a business ultimately. So we have to work with them in a professional manner to agree. So it should be that your contractor, you, and your insurance company all agree, unified front all the way through.
Yep.
Right. They're paying our bills. They're putting that roof on. To make sure that we show them respect at the same time.
Right. Great. Well, great. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you on the next one. Hopefully you guys learned some stuff on this and have a better idea of who to go with when hail comes through in hopefully 8 weeks. Hopefully not.
Catch you later.